Hello, our favorite humans. Welcome to Bronx Tales with your host, Bronxy B. And me, I'm Logan. Thank you for being here. I'm glad somebody's awake today. As you guys probably know, or at least my OGs know, that I like to save my favorite point until the end of the video, except for today, we're going to do it different. We are going to do it first. And as you guys know as well, that I love to share what I'm working on with you guys, because I think if anybody wants to help research or join in on my thoughts and dig into what I'm digging in, that more brains is better than just one. So I always tell you guys what I'm working on. So a couple weeks ago, I started thinking, with all this video footage and now knowing of the infamous time change, I was thinking, I wonder how much of this footage is actually looping, where they took the same footage, whether it be different seconds or a different length of minutes, and basically copy and pasting in specific areas to maybe cover something up. So I started doing a little bit of digging, and you will never believe what I found out. But if you're here, you probably will believe what I found out. I started plugging 20-minute segments into ChatGPT, and this is just going off of if we trust ChatGPT. I was plugging 20-minute segments of Linda Lane footage, dumpster footage, and so on into ChatGPT and having ChatGPT dissect the footage and tell me if there is any looping going on, and if there is looping, to please give me the duration of time, when it starts, when it ends, and how long the segment of looping actually lasts. And wouldn't you know, in the very first 20 minutes I plugged in there, ChatGPT absolutely found looping within the video. I'm actually going to tag Sherlock Romes and Pav and Birdie in this, just in case they find this useful to go along with their time change. I'm going to make a spreadsheet for each 1 hour long video that we have, and I'm going to make a spreadsheet and put the beginning of the loop, the end of the loop, and the duration of time the loop lasts. If anybody wants this spreadsheet, I'll be more than happy to share it with you guys and see if maybe some of this looping might be going on while something else is taking place that we know is important and they're just covering it up. So that's what I found out. I think it's pretty interesting that ChatGPT absolutely thinks there is 100% loops going on within these videos. So stay tuned while I continue to dig into that. Oh, another wonderful subscriber made a comment earlier today and said, hey, we've been looking at these crime scene photos and something just hasn't been sitting right with us. I'm wondering if maybe some of these photos might have been taken by Dylan or Bethany, since we know they're cell phone pictures. And it got me thinking, and I thought, I don't know if they're taken by Dylan or Bethany. I started to think probably not. But then it really got me thinking, and I thought, what if some of these cell phone pictures thrown out to mainstream media as crime scene photos are actually just photos of the crime scene, because there's a difference. And I started thinking, what if these photos are just recreation photos for all the documentaries they had been doing? What if these aren't actually the real crime scene photos or the real photos of when the crime happened? What if these are just the recreations like we saw in some of the documentaries? So I found that comment very interesting and thought-provoking, and that's exactly why we have this channel. So it was very good to see that, and very interesting if you think about it. I'm still waiting on some of the other 200 pictures they claim to have to be released to the media, and then I think we'll go from there. But it was very interesting thought that maybe these pictures are just recreations of the crime scene and maybe not of the crime scene itself. They're just photos of the crime scene rather than crime scene photos. I know we've seen some of the pictures with some of the droplets on the floor And although we haven't seen any super zoomed in photos, which is what I'd like to see, but just going off of those photos alone, the ones where we do see red fluid droplets on the floor, my question has been, is that a perpetrator standing there looking at the end result of their crime? Or is that a second perpetrator standing there waiting for the other perpetrator to get done with what they were trying to accomplish, and the droplets are coming off of a second perpetrator's weapon while they're waiting, as opposed to being droplets from the one perpetrator they claim that it is, just looking at the remnants of what they did. And I'm not sure if it's from one or from another waiting on the first one to finish. But what I do find very strange about it, and I've touched on this before, but I'm going to say it again, that I find it insanely strange that we don't see not one smear, smudge, or footprint within the droplets. And even if a perpetrator or two had shoe coverings on, you would still see smears in it. And then it got me thinking even further, we don't even see footprints or smears from any of the victims. I realized some of them were laying in bed and maybe didn't stand up after red fluid came about, but we should definitely see at least Xana's footprints in the red fluid in her room, and we don't even see that. I mean, if you take a look at Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman's crime scene, there were smears everywhere. I understand it could be different because it was outside and there might be a different level of fighting going on or less containment in the area. I do understand there's a difference, but I would still think you would see at least the victim's footprints in the red fluid, since the way they're unalive doesn't happen necessarily immediately. It can take up to a couple of minutes for somebody to pass away from those wounds. I'm just shocked to not see any smears, any footprints. Each droplet is perfectly intact. And there's something wrong with that. Another thing I've been patiently waiting for and extremely interested in is pictures or reports on the victim's clothing. I don't necessarily need to see autopsy pictures or anything like that. I just want to see their clothing because I believe that tells a story within itself. And we haven't seen any pictures yet, but we haven't seen any reports on their clothing either, which I'm a little bit shocked about. I would expect at least a report on what the clothing looked like and where the wounds in the clothing would show. I'm just a little concerned there hasn't been one mention of the victim's clothing whatsoever. What's really been bothering me within this investigation is the fact that back in October 10th of 2021, there was a female who called 911. This female lived with 3 other females in her house, and this happened late at night, early morning hours, and one female called 911 because a man dressed in black with a black ski mask broke into their home and was standing there with a knife. Now, one of these females kicked the perpetrator in the stomach, and the perpetrator ended up taking off. And it's crazy that they investigated that as maybe one of Brian Koberger's victims, which is totally insane because Brian Koberger did not even live there at this time. So we take that event and we mix that with the 1122 King Road event, along with the person who was trying to break into Ava Woods' apartment around the same time in the middle of the night, just a week or two prior to the 1122 atrocity. And it really sounds like it's all the same perpetrator. And if we know that the one back in 2021 could not possibly be Brian Koberger, then it raises the question that 1122 King Road atrocity possibly wasn't done by Brian Koberger either. What are the odds in a small town that there are several different men dressing in black with black ski masks, holding a knife, breaking into females' homes in the middle of the night? What are the odds that there are several different men doing that at the same time frame? It really makes me think that they have the wrong person, and the person that has been doing this since we know of back in 2021 is still out there doing the same things. I would think that they might lay low for a little bit so Bryan Kohberger can take the heat for these crimes, but I would suspect that there is somebody else out there that committed this crime, tried to break into those 4 females' house in the middle of the night, and tried to break into Ava Woods' apartment in the middle of the night just a week or two before this crime happened. I don't think that there is more than one man running around doing this in a small town. And I think even Ava Woods got the thought that if Bryan Kohberger's phone did not put him in Moscow on the night that somebody tried to break into her apartment, then that means that Bryan Kohberger is probably not the unaliver. And I think Ava Woods even started to think that. And I know by looking at Bryan Kohberger's Target receipts in Moscow, he didn't have a receipt for 10/14/2022, which is the night that the guy tried to break into Ava Woods' apartment. So his phone possibly did not put him in Moscow at the time. And I do think that Ava Woods fears that they have the wrong guy. We just had a few things to bring you today. I can't wait to see you guys tomorrow, which is Thursday at about 5:15 for our next live. I hope to see everybody there. Other than that, I hope you do something very nice for yourself today. Be kind, but more importantly, be kind to your dog. Bye, guys.